In the forest town of Brookville Ridge, nothing ever happened. At least, that's what everyone liked to say. Quiet, orderly, predominantly Christian, one of those postcard towns people point to as the definition of safe. But on one seemingly ordinary Saturday morning, that illusion shattered forever. Zara, an 8-year-old girl with a laugh as light as the wind through pine trees, was riding her pink bicycle in circles around the driveway of her family's home. Her laughter danced between the trees like a melody only a child could sing. Inside, her mother, Amina, stood at the kitchen window, lovingly watching her daughter while preparing lunch. Everything felt familiar, peaceful, until it wasn't. The laughter stopped. At first, Amina didn't panic. She looked out again expecting to spot Zara near the porch or maybe pedaling down the path. But there was no sign of her. The bike was gone. The front gate was ajar. She stepped outside, calling Zara's name, her voice steady. No answer. She called again, louder. Still nothing. Panic hadn't fully bloomed yet, but the unease was growing. She searched the backyard, the garden, the winding road that led to the post office. She knocked on doors. Some opened reluctantly. Most were courteous but distant. Amina, the only visibly Muslim woman in the area, had long felt the quiet separation. She never said anything, but she sensed the invisible wall. "She's not here," one neighbor said, shifting uncomfortably. By noon, the sheriff's office was involved. By nightfall, the whole town had mobilized. Volunteers scoured the woods with flashlights. Drones buzzed overhead. Churches organized prayer circles. Flyers were posted. Pastors led vigils. But Amina, she went home. She laid her prayer mat down, bowed her head, and wept in silence. She didn't go to the press. She didn't rage on social media. She prayed. And that's when the whispers started. You'd think someone who prays 5 times a day could protect their child. Why would God listen to her? She doesn't even believe in Jesus. That kind of religion doesn't belong in towns like ours. And worst of all, maybe if she'd watched her daughter more closely, this wouldn't have happened. Her husband had died in a car accident years before. She had raised Zara alone, with grace and strength. But now, even her worth as a mother was being questioned. She said nothing, but each cruel insinuation pierced her heart. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, months into years. Zara was never found. The case went cold. The flyers faded under the sun. The community moved on. New homes were built, new families moved in, and the world, deliberately or not, told Amina to let go. But she didn't. Every Friday, she still cooked Zara's favorite meal. The porch light remained on every night. And before she slept, she ended each day with the same prayer. God, return my daughter to me, however you will, but please return her. Then, one May evening, construction began on a property not far from her home. It had recently been converted into a short-term rental. The new owners wanted to fix the plumbing in the garage, so a crew was brought in to tear up the concrete. On the second day, the jackhammer struck metal. They thought it was just an old pipe, until they unearthed the shape of a bicycle handle. Child-sized, pink, rusted. They kept digging. Out came a small, dirt-covered bike. Purple tassels still clung to the handlebars. A white basket sat at the front, dulled by years of grime but unmistakable in form. The foreman froze. The sheriff was called. Detective Russell, now a senior officer, was on the scene within the hour. He'd never forgotten the Zara case. He stood silently for a long time, staring at the bicycle. Then, finally, "Get me Amina Forrester." Amina was just finishing dinner when her phone rang. The number was unfamiliar. Her hand trembled slightly. "Mrs. Forrester," the voice said, "this is Detective Russell. We may have found something connected to Zara." Her heart didn't race. It didn't shatter. After 12 years of silence, she had learned to remain still. "What did you find?" she asked quietly. "A child's bicycle," he replied, "buried under the garage of a house on Oak Ridge Road. It matches the one you reported missing." She didn't cry. She didn't collapse. She only whispered, "I'm coming." The property was swarmed with police, marked by yellow tape. Neighbors peered from behind curtains. "That's her, isn't it? The mother. She never left town." Amina ignored them. She stepped from her car with quiet resolve. Detective Russell met her near the open garage. The bicycle lay under a work light, rusted, dirt-covered but otherwise intact. She stepped forward. Her eyes caught something. A small scratch on the basket's edge. A flower shape. Zara had carved it with a rock years ago. "Now it's special, Mama," she'd said, beaming with pride. Amina placed her hand on her chest. "This is hers," she said firmly. "This was my daughter's bike. That's all." And when it returns, it carries the full weight of truth. The morning after Zara's bicycle was unearthed, Brookville Ridge felt like it was holding its breath. The media hadn't caught wind of the discovery yet, but behind closed doors, the case had erupted. Detective Russell sat in his office, rereading the original case files. Every detail mattered now: the last time Zara was seen, the layout of the neighborhood, the house where the bike was found. He pulled up the property records. Owner, Vance Holloway. Current residence, Switzerland. Caretaker, Ernest Mullery. Tenure, 11 years. 11 years, Russell muttered. That means he started just after Zara disappeared. He didn't believe in coincidences. He picked up the phone. "Bring Ernest Mullery in." Amina hadn't slept. That image haunted her. Someone knew something, and they were mocking her. She had reported the message to the police, and the cyber unit was investigating. But she was done waiting. "I ran out of time 12 years ago," she told Russell coldly. She stood outside, watching the sunrise bathe the sky in pink and gold, just like the bicycle that had been buried in cement, like someone had tried to erase her daughter. But truth doesn't stay buried. She whispered a prayer, then turned toward the kitchen just as her phone rang again. At the station, Ernest Mullery looked shaken. His gray hair was thinning, hands slightly trembling. "I already told the officer at the site," he said nervously. "I don't know anything about a bike. I was just the caretaker." "You've been there over a decade," Russell said, unimpressed. "You never noticed anything strange about that garage floor?" "It was solid concrete," Ernest said sharply, then caught himself. "Sorry, I don't know what to say." "Where were you when the property was built?" "I wasn't hired until 6 months after Mr. Holloway moved overseas." "Do you have logs, guest records?" "I keep everything," Ernest replied. "Good. Bring them, today, and don't leave town." Russell's voice was sharp now. "We're reopening the Zara Forrester case, and until we know who buried that bike, everyone is under scrutiny." Ernest nodded, but as he stood to leave, something in his eyes shifted, an almost imperceptible flicker, a calculation. Russell didn't miss it. That evening, Amina received another call from the detective. "Ernest's story doesn't add up. He says he wasn't around during the construction, but county records say he supervised the original build before becoming caretaker." Amina felt a chill. "You think he's involved?" "I don't know yet," Russell said. "But his timeline and demeanor don't sit right. I've placed 2 officers to keep eyes on him." "Good," Amina said, "because if he's hiding something, I want to live to see the day God brings it into the light." Russell hesitated. "I don't usually say this in cases, but I believe you will." "I think your faith is misplaced." Amina didn't respond. She didn't have to. The following morning, just before dawn, she woke with a tightness in her chest, a restless, unsettling feeling she couldn't explain. She stepped outside. The world was still cloaked in darkness and silence, yet something felt wrong. Her gaze drifted toward the trees behind the rental property, the same area where Zara's bicycle had been discovered. Then she saw it. a faint light glowing from one of the side windows of the old house. That house had been sealed off for the investigation. No one should be inside. Heart pounding, she grabbed her coat and keys. By the time she reached the narrow road leading to the house, the light had disappeared. But a white van was now parked in the driveway, unmarked, untraceable, not a police vehicle. Amina stayed in her car, hidden behind the trees. Her hands trembled. Then she saw him. Ernest. He was moving quickly, carrying something heavy, possibly a box or a barrel, toward the van. His movements were jerky, anxious. He kept looking over his shoulder. Amina reached for her phone. "Detective," she said the instant the call connected. "He's here. He's at the house right now. He's taking something." "Do not approach him," Detective Russell responded instantly. "Stay back. Officers are on the way." "I'm parked out of sight," Amina said, eyes locked on Ernest. "But he's hiding something. I know it." "Stay on the line," Russell instructed. Suddenly, Ernest stopped. His head turned toward the road, toward her. Amina froze. Did he see her? "Number." He turned back, loaded the object into the van, and climbed in. Seconds later, the vehicle rolled down the road and disappeared into the dark. Amina exhaled, voice barely audible. "He's running." Minutes later, Russell arrived. "You did the right thing," he told her. "We've issued an alert. Every patrol in the county is watching for that van." "What was he carrying?" Amina asked. "We don't know yet," Russell replied, "but I'd bet it's something he didn't want us to find." Her voice turned resolute. "Then find him." Russell looked at her, not just as a grieving mother, but as something stronger, unshakable. "We will." An hour later, a highway patrol officer spotted the van abandoned near a wooded area west of town. Responding units arrived in silence. They found Ernest dragging a second barrel into the trees. Smoke trailed faintly behind him. He surrendered without resistance. Inside the van were 3 sealed containers. In one of them, 3 young women, drugged, alive, breathing. Russell called Amina from the scene. "Amina," he said, his voice strained, "you need to come to the hospital." "What happened?" she asked, standing completely still. "We found 3 girls. One of them. We think it might be Zara." Amina covered her mouth. No words came. Only a whisper, barely audible. "I knew you were listening." When the ambulance arrived at the hospital, flashing lights bathed the entrance in red. Paramedics rushed through the sliding doors. Amina followed the stretcher, eyes fixed on the girl's face. She was older, her features more defined, her skin paler, her hair longer. But the face, yes, the face was unmistakable. The same bone structure, the same long lashes, even the tiny dimple on her chin. It was Zara. As they wheeled her into Trauma Room 2, Amina grabbed the rail of the stretcher. "I'm her mother," she told a nurse who stepped in front of her. "Please, I need to be with her." The nurse hesitated, but a nearby doctor nodded. "Let her in." Inside, machines beeped and monitors blinked. Electrodes were applied, an oxygen mask secured, 4 lines inserted. The trauma team worked efficiently. But Amina barely noticed the chaos over the roar of her own heartbeat. She moved to Zara's side and gently took her hand. It was warm. "I'm here," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I'm here now, Zara." 10 minutes later, Detective Russell arrived. He stood just beyond the glass doors, his expression drawn with fatigue and urgency. The doctor eventually stepped out. "She's stable," he said. "Vitals are holding. She's under heavy sedation. We believe she was drugged with a tranquilizer. We're monitoring her closely." "Will she wake up soon?" Amina asked. "Could be hours. Could be longer." Amina sank onto a bench, body weighted with hope and fear. She stared at her daughter through the glass, whispering a quiet prayer. "Thank you. Even if she never wakes up. Just thank you for letting me see her again." Hours passed. The two other girls recovered from the van had also been brought to the hospital, unconscious, drugged, but alive. One was Kayla Bennett, missing from Portland since she was 9. The other, Juliana Ramirez, vanished on a school trip to Seattle 13 years ago. 3 girls, missing for over a decade, now all alive. Around 2:30 a.m., Zara's eyelids flickered. Amina, half asleep beside the bed, shot upright. Zara's fingers twitched. Then her eyes opened, unfocused, dazed, but open. Amina leaned close. "Zara," she said softly, "can you hear me?" Zara blinked, her lips moving faintly. "Mama?" A whisper, hoarse but unmistakable. Amina covered her mouth as tears filled her eyes. Not loud sobs, but a long, silent cry, like a dam breaking after years of holding steady. "Yes, baby," she whispered. "I'm here. I've always been here." Zara looked around, her breath coming faster. "Where am I?" "You're safe. You're in a hospital. He can't hurt you anymore." Zara tried to sit up. Amina gently pressed her down. "Don't rush. Just rest." The door opened. Detective Russell entered with a doctor. Zara flinched. "No, no," Amina said quickly. "They're here to help. This is Detective Russell. He's the one who never stopped looking for you." Zara stared at him, wary. Then, slowly, she nodded. Russell approached with care. "Zara," he said gently, "I know this is sudden, but can you tell us anything?" "Only if you're ready." Zara inhaled deeply, then looked him straight in the eye. "He told us you'd never come," she said, "that no one cared." "Who?" Russell asked, though he already knew. "Ernest, the man who kept us. Did he hurt you?" Russell's voice was careful. Zara hesitated. "Not like people think, but he lied. About everything. He said the world had ended, that our parents were gone, that he was saving us." Amina wept silently beside her. "Why?" Russell asked. Zara looked down. "He said our parents didn't deserve us. He said, my mom let me ride my bike alone. He said she didn't care." Amina closed her eyes. Pain surged across her face. "I never believed him," Zara said quickly, glancing at her mother. "Not really. I remembered your face, Mama. The way you kissed my forehead every night. The stories. The songs. I remembered." Amina stood and gripped her daughter's hand. "I never stopped looking for you," she whispered. "Not for 1 second." The doctor stepped forward. "She needs rest now." Russell nodded. "Thank you, Zara. That's enough for tonight." As he turned to leave, he glanced at Amina. "Can I speak with you privately?" She followed. Russell nodded slowly. "There's something else," he said, reaching into a file. He slid a photo across the table. "Do you recognize this?" Amina glanced at it. Her face stiffened. It was the distorted image she had received in that anonymous message. The one where Zara's face had been replaced with something grotesque. "I'll never forget it," she whispered. "It was sent from Ernest's laptop," Russell said. "He created a new account and used a nearby public Wi-Fi. After the bike was discovered, he panicked. That image was meant as a warning, to stop you from digging." Amina's jaw tightened. "But I didn't." "No," Russell replied. "You didn't." Back at the hospital, Zara lay resting when she asked softly, "Did he ever reach out to you? In all those years?" Amina hesitated. "Not until recently. He sent something meant to hurt me, to break me." Zara's eyes darkened. "That sounds like him." She looked away. "Whenever one of us cried or asked about our families, he'd go silent. Then, later, he'd bring in a fake newspaper or show us a twisted photo. He used to say, 'Your parents forgot you. Why can't you forget them?'" Amina's hands clenched in her lap. "But we didn't forget," Zara said firmly. "We remembered everything, even your voice. Every night before I slept, I'd replay the last thing you said to me. 'Be careful, sweetheart. Don't go far.'" I held on to that. You did more than survive, Amina said, her voice trembling. You endured. Zara nodded. It wasn't just me. Kayla and Juliana, too. We made promises, told stories. That's how we held on. Amina reached forward, brushing a strand of hair from her daughter's forehead. You're stronger than anything this world could ever throw at you. Zara's voice was a whisper. Number. You are. You never stopped searching. That's why I'm here. By nightfall, Ernest had been transferred from the county jail to a federal holding facility. The charges against him formed a towering wall: kidnapping, unlawful imprisonment, psychological abuse, attempted human trafficking, cyber harassment, obstruction of justice. Russell stood beside the transport van as Ernest, chained and stoic, was led away. Officer Bailey approached. You believe in karma? She asked. Russell gave a faint smile. I believe evil doesn't stay hidden forever. He turned toward the hospital, his voice soft. Sometimes, justice looks like a woman who never stopped praying. Inside, Amina stood quietly by Zara's bedside. The room was dim, lit only by the soft hum of hospital monitors. Her daughter was asleep once more. Amina didn't speak this time. She simply stood there, breathing in the miracle. For 12 long years the world had told her to give up, move on, accept the loss. But here she was, holding her daughter's hand, crying, but this time with joy. Reality had finally bent to truth. By morning, Cedar Brook Memorial Hospital was no longer just a quiet place of healing. The outside was swarmed with news crews. Satellite vans lined the curb. Reporters clutched microphones like weapons, all drawn to the story. A missing girl, found alive after 12 years, hidden in plain sight. Detective Russell stood at the hospital entrance, flanked by 2 officers watching the chaos unfold. He had already given a brief statement, measured and careful, but questions were coming fast. How long had she been missing? Was the family involved? Was it a religious abduction? And, above all, how did she survive? Inside the hospital, the atmosphere remained calmer but no less intense. Amina sat beside Zara, who was growing stronger by the hour. Her memories, once fragmented, were starting to sharpen. But with clarity came pain. You don't have to share it all at once, Amina said gently. I want to, Zara replied. I need to. Later that day, Detective Russell met with Zara in a secure interview room within the hospital. Amina sat beside her, her hand a steady presence on her daughter's shoulder. Russell opened his notebook. Only when you're ready. I'm ready, Zara said clearly. Her voice was calm. He took me because he thought you'd forgotten me, she said to Amina. He told me you were too busy praying. That faith made you blind. Russell raised his eyebrows. He really said that? He asked. Zara nodded. He called religion a distraction, a fantasy. He believed only he had the strength to rescue girls like me. Amina didn't flinch, but her grip on Zara's shoulder tightened just slightly. At first, Zara continued, he told us we were the lucky ones, that he'd saved us. He said, "You're safe now. No more danger." And then he locked the doors. How did he prevent you from escaping? Russell asked. There were no windows, Zara replied. Just walls and a metal door. Shelves lined every corner. He gave us clothes, food. It looked normal, like a basement apartment. But we were trapped, watched. There were cameras everywhere. And if we cried or got upset, he used sedatives. And the others? Russell asked gently. We protected E. Amina closed her laptop. She didn't need to defend herself. She didn't need the world to agree. She had Zara, and that was her answer. That evening, Zara turned to her and asked softly, Did you ever stop believing I was alive? Amina paused before answering. Sitting on the edge of the hospital bed, she gently smoothed her daughter's hair. There were moments when hope felt so far away, she admitted, but I never stopped praying, even when I doubted, even when they told me to stop. I kept asking, not because I was strong, but because I had nothing else left. Zara smiled gently. That was enough. Amina nodded. I was told again and again to let go, but something in me refused. Maybe it was a mother's love. Maybe it was faith. Maybe both. Zara reached for her mother's hand. You taught me how to survive, she said, without even knowing you were doing it. As night settled over the hospital, headlines churned and cameras remained outside. But in room 213, the noise fell away. A girl, once swallowed by silence, was now cradled in love. And a mother once dismissed as delusional stood as living proof. Some prayers don't echo into emptiness. They move mountains. The courtroom was filled, not just with people but with something heavier. Silence, anticipation, and the kind of reverence usually reserved for funerals or parades. Everyone was there. Teachers who once taught Zara, neighbors who'd offered Amina half-hearted condolences, reporters, officials, volunteers, even strangers who had never known the family. They all squeezed into the wooden benches, eager to witness what they had once ignored. At the front of the room sat Ernest Holloway, guarded on both sides. His orange jumpsuit was spotless, but his face was unraveling. The calm, paternal facade he once wore was gone. He refused to meet anyone's eyes, especially Zara's. When Judge Rubin entered, the room rose. The trial for the kidnapping and unlawful imprisonment of Zara Forrester and 2 other girls was officially underway. But this was more than a legal proceeding. For Brookville Ridge, this was about truth, about reckoning, about redemption. Zara took her place behind the witness stand, her hands trembling slightly in her lap. A court officer asked gently, "Do you swear to tell the truth?" Zara's voice, calm and composed, carried through the room. "I don't need to swear," she said. "I've waited 12 years to speak. I will say nothing but the truth." Everyone leaned in. "I remember the day he took me," she began. "I was riding my bike on Maple Lane, just 2 blocks from home. It was a road I'd traveled 100 times. I wasn't afraid." She paused. "He told me my mother had sent him, that there'd been an accident, that we needed to leave right away." Gasps rose around the room. I didn't believe him, until he showed me a photo. It was doctored, to make it look like my mother had been in a car crash. I was 8. I panicked. She spoke clearly, deliberately. "He didn't beat us, like people assume. He did something worse. He took our names, our memories. He replaced them with fear and twisted kindness." The prosecutor asked softly, "Did he ever let you see the outside world?" Zara nodded slightly. "Once. When I was 12. He blindfolded me, drove to a park at night and let me sit in silence for 5 minutes. He called it a reward, but it felt like punishment. I heard children laughing somewhere nearby. I cried for days after." The courtroom was hushed, not a whisper, just a town finally listening. When Amina was called to testify, she stood in her modest blue hijab, holding a folded piece of paper, but never read from it. Instead, she looked directly at the judge and then to the jury. "I was told to stop believing," she said evenly. "Told I was delusional, irrational, obsessed with faith. I was told to move on. But what no one ever told me," she paused, "was how to forget my child." Her voice didn't tremble. It grew stronger. In the beginning, this town held vigils, search parties, charity events. But then the silence came. People avoided my eyes, treated me like I was broken, like my grief was an inconvenience. She gestured, not to Ernest, but to the people watching. "You moved on because it was easier. But I stayed, because someone had to wait for her." Tears rolled down cheeks throughout the courtroom. "I don't want pity," Amina concluded. "I want accountability, for the man who did this, and for every person who chose to look away, who acted as if God had gone blind. Outside, the media swarmed. Zara's testimony became global news. Hashtags exploded. Nashir Zara speaks, a Jewish 12 years buried Dodge, Brookville truth. But one post stood out. A woman in Atlanta wrote, "I'm not Muslim, I'm not even a mother, but tonight I prayed for the first time in years, because that girl reminded me that light survives." Back at the hospital, Juliana and Kayla, two of the other survivors, watched the trial on TV. "She's brave," Juliana whispered. "She always was," Kayla replied. "I thought the world." "I'm sorry," said a woman, "for not believing you." "I was your neighbor," said a man. "I should have knocked, should have asked." Amina accepted each apology with quiet dignity. She held no bitterness. She had what she needed. That night, Amina and Zara sat on the hospital rooftop. No cameras, no press, just mother and daughter. "Do you forgive him?" Zara asked. Amina was quiet for a moment. "I don't know if that's my place, but I forgive the ones who abandoned us. I understand now. They were afraid of pain." Zara nodded. "I think one day I'll forgive him too. Not for him, for me." They sat in silence. For the first time in 12 years, silence didn't feel like grief. It felt like peace. 6 weeks after the trial, Brookville Ridge looked unchanged. Same streets, same chapel, same grocery store. But the hearts of its people had been changed. Zara, the girl who once vanished, had become the girl who made her town stop pretending. And Amina, once labeled delusional, now seen as divinely guided. The media painted her as a symbol, but Zara wasn't interested in being one. She just wanted to live, to walk freely, to feel safe. But healing isn't linear. Standing in her childhood bedroom, untouched since she was taken, Zara breathed in the scent of the past. On her shelf sat a Quran, wrapped in plastic, her name scribbled in childish handwriting. Holding it close, she whispered, "I remembered your words, Mama. When I had nothing else, I held on to them." One afternoon, Officer Bailey returned. "I need to speak with you," she told Amina. Inside, she handed her a file. It contained the photo of an aging man. "His name is Dale Whitaker," Bailey said. "Years ago, he helped Ernest build the hidden structure, took hush money, claimed he didn't know about your daughter, but he suspected." "Why now?" Amina asked. "His granddaughter saw Zara's testimony," Bailey explained. "She asked him if he'd ever ignored a girl in danger. That broke him." Amina stared at the photo. "I will forgive," she said at last, "but I will not forget." Zara didn't let the pain end with her. She turned it into purpose. She launched a foundation. Light between the walls, a refuge for survivors failed by the system. A space to speak, to heal, to rebuild. At the launch event, the room was packed. Journalists, families, students, clergy. Zara stepped up to the mic wearing a simple scarf, not out of obligation, but choice. "I'm not here to tell you a sad story," she began. "I'm here to show you what faith looks like when the world calls it foolish." She paused. "I survived because my mother prayed. She didn't scream. She didn't riot. She simply believed. And that belief, somehow, it reached me through walls." The room was silent. "I'm Muslim, and I'm proud. I didn't survive because of luck. I survived because the one who made me never abandoned me." A few in the front wiped away tears. "If you wonder whether God listens," she said, "look at me. I am living proof." That evening, something unexpected happened. A group of Christians approached Amina and Zara outside the center. 3 pastors, a retired judge, several families. A woman named Ruth said, "I was raised to believe Islam was distant. Harsh. But today, I saw peace." Another added, "Your strength changed something in me." One by one, they stepped forward. "We want to learn," said the judge. "We want what you have." Amina and Zara exchanged glances. Amina smiled, her eyes shining. "We'll show you, with kindness, with truth." Within 2 weeks, 32 people embraced Islam, including Ruth, the judge, and a young seminary student named Michael, who once debated Muslims online. "I thought I knew God," Michael later said, "but Zara made me realize I only knew fear, not submission." The local newspaper ran a headline, "From Tragedy to Truth, How One Girl's Faith is Transforming Brookville." Beneath it, a photo of Zara handing a Quran to Ruth, both smiling. One day, Zara returned to the abandoned Holloway property. She didn't come alone. Behind her walked a group of new Muslims, once strangers, now family in faith. They stood quietly before the boarded-up house. "Why come back here?" someone asked. Zara looked ahead. "Because this is where I was hidden. But now it will be the place where truth stood." They prayed together on the grass, facing east, facing the one who had never left her side.